Hello, Joyce-Anne Anthony, aka JJ. With this video, I'm going to be going over the modifiers, and this is my scene. I kind of took it overboard. It was just supposed to be the couple kind of like dancing in a museum, I guess, yeah, because it's Valentine's Day. But let's go to the modifiers. I added a hue and saturation modifier earlier. My characters were looking a little dull, so I added this modifier to kind of brighten them up. So for this first video, we're going to go over the Generate Modifiers. According to the Blender manual, the Generate group of modifiers includes constructive tools that either change the general appearance of or automatically add new geometry to an object. And the first one I'm going to go over is the Array modifier. I think the Array modifier is really great for if you wanted to add like crowds. It copies the original image and it just makes copies, as many copies as you want. It's really useful for creating complex, repetitive drawings. The count, of course, is the total number of copies that you want. The material override is the index of the material to use on duplicated strokes. Okay, I'm gonna keep that at 0. And your different options for the array modifier is relative offset, constant offset, object offset, and randomize. So if you go to relative offset, you can factor it by the X, Y, and Z axis. So the default, it comes on X. So Y is going to be like coming to you, and then Z will be like when it goes up and down. And if you ever have like trouble or confused which direction, if you look at the top right, there's always a compass at the top to help you figure out which direction you want to go. With the constant offset, you can change the distance between the duplicated objects on the X, Y, and Z axis. And then you have object offset, which is really great if you want to duplicate like and add an empty. And randomize is really great if you want it to be more random and not constant for the rotation and scale. The next modifier, and this is actually my first time using it, is the build modifier. And the build modifier makes strokes appear or disappear in a frame range to create the effect of animating lines being drawn or erased. So I'm gonna play it right now because it disappeared. Oh, when I was watching this, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like a time lapse. I think a better name for it would be like maybe the time-lapse modifier, because when I hear build, I mean, it makes sense now. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I think like build, I think it's more like the interpolation animation option. Now I'm playing with the different transitions. You have grow, shrink, and fade, and you can adjust the time the animation starts and then the number of frames, like where it starts and ends, which is really cool. And I don't think I talked about in the last modifier, but at the very bottom you see influence, and by default it will animate everything, but influence you can add the modifier to a specific layer that you drew. So for this I just I added the modifier to the coloring, but influence is really great if you don't want the whole thing to be modified. I didn't spend too much time on the third modifier, which is the mirror modifier. The mirror modifier mirrors the strokes along its local X, Y, and or Z axis across the object origin. It can also use another object as the mirror center, then use that object's local axis instead of its own. As you can see, there's a lot of different adjustments. You can have the X, Y, and Z. X, Y, Y, Z, I can keep going, but there's a lot of different options with the mirror modifier. Up next is the multiple strokes modifier, and this modifier generates multiple parallel strokes around the original ones. And when I was doing it originally with my drawing, I was like I get it, but you can't really see the modifier. Ugh. So after playing around with this a little too long, I kind of simplified it. I wanted you guys to really be able to see this effect, so I just opened up a grease pencil empty and I just drew 2 lines and then added the modifiers so you can see the effect more clearly. So now this makes a little bit more sense of the multiple strokes modifier. Up next is the Simplify Modifier. The Simplify Modifier allows you to reduce the amount of points in the strokes. The goal of this modifier is to reduce points while maintaining the line shapes. As I was doing this, I was like, you can't really see the modifier. So what I'm using is the examples that is on Blender's manual. At the top is the fixed mode, and the fixed mode deletes alternate points in the strokes except the start and end points. And then the bottom is the adaptive mode, and the adaptive mode uses the RDP algorithm for points deletion. The algorithm tries to obtain a similar line shape with fewer points. So I tried to kind of do what I did in the past, maybe try to play with it with simple, I guess just 2 strokes and see how that came out. And it didn't really, I'm going to continue to play with the Simplify modifier, but hopefully the examples from the Blender manual help clear it up. Help you understand this modifier. Up last is the Subdivide Modifier, and the Subdivide Modifier subdivide the strokes by inserting points between other points to the lines. So I guess it's like the antonym of what we just did was a Simplify Modifier. And then your options are Cat Mull Clark, which is the default option. It subdivides and smooths the surfaces, which you can, I guess, kind of see in my drawing. And then Simple, it only subdivides the surface without any smoothing. And then the subdivisions under that, it recursively adds more points. So yeah, I kind of got it. I use subdivision more for, I guess, 2D animation or 2D art, 2D work, but I guess it's really great to have on the 2D side as well. Hopefully you learned more about the modifiers with 2D, specifically the Generate Modifiers. And if there was anything I wasn't clear about, I linked the website of the Blender manual that goes over Generate Modifiers if you need more clarification. Thank you so much for watching. This is Joyce-Anne Anthony, aka JJ. Until next time.